go ahead and call the meeting to order. Sorry about the confusion about the schedule of the week of our meeting. We thought we were doing everything properly, but apparently it was way more complicated than we intended it to be. Peggy, do we need to continue to look at moving it, or can we keep it on this third Thursday? Let's keep it the way it is so we can minimize the county attorney's involvement.
I'll be here the following year, and then I may be gone somewhere else.
Approval of minutes. Any comments, questions, corrections, additions, subtractions?
Ben Lester had correction. I had his name done in the meeting. Ben Lester, and I had to change that. He was not here for that one.
On mine.
You should have it.
Yeah.
I hope Chuck off.
Motion to approve with changes as noted. Second? Further discussion? All in favor? All right, new business. Hey, Jenna. We have Pat Taylor, mayor for the town of Highlands, with us this afternoon. And then Justin's going to speak for the town of Franklin. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got more stuff.
Okay. Pat has to go back to Highlands for a council meeting up there, so we'll go ahead and let him start off.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to the planning board. I understand what you do because I served on the Highlands Planning Board for 6 years. So I appreciate what you do in the county. And before I make my remarks, I want to say that, Highlands has always had a good, close working relationship with the county because we are a part of Macon County. We work closely with the Macon County Commission, the Sheriff's Department, the Board of Education, and we look forward to continuing those good working relationships. But I wanted today to just present to you some of the ideas about Highlands, give you kind of an overview of what we're doing in Highlands and some of our infrastructure needs, especially in the area of utilities, water, and sewer, and so forth. So let me just go ahead and go over a kind of an overview. I like to say that Highlands is a tale of two cities. And here's what I mean by that. We have a kind of a notion that we're kind of the little small Mayberry mountain town of 980 people. And at certain times of the year, that is exactly right. We are small, we're about 980 people. Also, you have that perception, we have a lot of well-to-do people up there that take care of all of our needs. That's our seasonal residents. But then there's another type of Highlands, and it's about to occur in the next month or so. And that's going to be a town of possibly 10,000 people. So that presents a real challenge for the town. We have to deliver full services to our permanent residents, which isn't that big of a problem. But also we have to anticipate our seasonal residents who come up for many months in the year. We also have to be ready for our visitors and tourists that come to the town. So there's two cities, and I want to talk more about the larger city and just give you an overview of Highlands government. First of all, we have over 70 town employees. I kind of get criticism a lot of times as the mayor, the new mayor, saying, you got too many people in this town. You got too many police. And I say, I guess if we were just dealing with 900 people, you could maybe make that case. But then there are times when we have, thousands of people in town, and they expect us to provide, a full range of services, and 70 employees sometimes is just about the right number that we need. We have 11 members in our police department, they have to patrol the largest municipal area in city limits in about 4 counties in Western Carolina. Highlands has the largest geographical city limits area, and they patrol that. We have a water plant that provides water for our citizens. During January, we're producing several 100,000 gallons each day. During the summer, we have to up that to 1,500,000 gallons a day. We have a sewer system. And again, part of the year, it's not working at its optimal capacity, but in the summer months, starting around Memorial Day, it too has to be able to produce or process about 1,500,000 gallons of sewage a day. And by the way, I'll say this. Some people worry that when we discharge our water, where does it go? It goes into the river, but case can be made by the time we have treated that water and gone through all the processes, it supports trout. It's as clean as the Lake Sequoia water. So we have the sewer plant. We also run one of the oldest electric utilities in Western Carolina, if not the oldest. We have our own utility system. We buy power from Duke Power. We went out of the hydroelectric business many years ago, and now we are kind of captive to the rates and everything like everyone that Duke Power has. We have, of course, our local garbage pickup and sanitation department. And then we have a total of about 3,000 or more utility accounts that our town, processes. We have in Highlands the Unified Development Ordinance. We have zoning, parking and sign ordinance, one of which the parking ordinance we'll be looking at tonight. And like any dynamic community in North Carolina, we have ordinances that regulate development. We're fortunate to have a hospital, the Cashiers Highlands Hospital, for our residents. And one of the things about Highlands is that it's a tourist destination and a venue for second home residents. And our full service approach is a critical factor to the success of our major industry. And that industry is hospitality and tourism. People like our resort town because of its beauty, quality of life, variety of businesses, the arts, civic groups, and then our town services that I made reference to. Now, the question could be, well, what does Highlands contribute to the economic development of the county? And it depends on how you measure economic development. If you're looking at manufacturing and jobs created by assembly parts and things, we don't contribute a lot. That's not who we are. But if you're talking about economic development in other ways, we contribute a whole lot to Macon County. I believe that economic development centers around generating money and revenue. And Highlands generates a lot of money and even jobs for this county. As the mayor of Highlands, I'm a member of the Southwestern Regional Planning Commission, newly appointed. And the commission has identified 3 legs of a stool of economic development. And one is technology development. And actually, we're looking at trying to improve IT companies and software companies if we had that. Another is transportation, which is critical to this region, and we're always, trying to improve that. But then a third part of that economic stool of development would be, and probably the most important would be tourism. For this whole region, and Western Carolina, it's one of the most visited areas in the United States. I think Jimmy and I were in a meeting today, and they were saying it's the 4th most frequently visited place in the United States. So that's really our strategic advantage, and that is our tourism and our visitor and hospitality industry. Now, our full-time residents and our second home residents have invested in very expensive real estate in Highlands and the plateau area, not just in the Highland city limits, but all around there. Some may disagree with me, but it's about 40 to 50% of the property tax value in Macon County. The same can be said for generating sales tax, and then the room occupancy tax. So we're really one of the economic engines of Macon County. And with that said, we have ongoing infrastructure needs for our residents to provide those essential services that make them want to come and invest and stay in Highlands. And then also those services have to be provided for our growing hospitality industry. Just one of these businesses, for example, Old Edwards Inn. Right now, they employ over 300 people in their operations in Highlands. That is an industry for us. It's a valuable industry, and that's just one. We probably estimate that there are over 1,000 people in the Highlands Plateau area that are involved in some way in the hospitality industry. And that's not even to say about things like home maintenance, construction, and things like that. What I want to make the point is that Highlands should be given full consideration for any county financial support for economic development. As I've said, the town and the area infrastructure has needs, and these needs, if we meet these needs, it assures that we have a strong stream of tax money that doesn't just stay in Highlands, but it goes throughout the whole county. So the primary beneficiary of this tax base is Macon County. And I want to kind of remind people this, because sometimes coming from Highlands, it kind of gets away. Some people think that if you live in Highlands, then you're in Highlands. But I say, I'm from Macon County too, and here's the way I illustrate that. My wife and I have a 1,700 square foot house in Highlands. It is not a new house. It is an old house that used to be a resort house that would be closed down during the winter. Well, we refurbished it and made it a year-round house. It's on only a little over a half acre, and it has been assessed at over $500,000. Now, what does that translate into? That means that I'm paying about $750 in town taxes, which I gladly pay. And then I pay over $1,600 in county taxes, which I gladly pay too. But I just want to make the point that we're part of the county and we pay taxes, and we just like to be included in the decision. So I know that you have a handout of some of our needs that are upcoming. And in fact, as the mayor, I'm going to have to be dealing with this with our new budget cycle very, very soon. So let me go over some of these. First of all, we're really concerned about our water intake. The last few years, the rain has been very good, and we've been able to provide meet our water needs very easily. With continuous development and so forth, we have had problems with erosion and runoff, stormwater runoff, which has kind of put pressure on some of our water intake areas. We recently got a grant from the EPA to relocate one of our water intakes in Lake Sequoia, which will help for the short term solve that problem. It was a over $2 million grant. They required that we put up about $450,000, and what that becomes is just, instead of a loan, they just gave us the money, but we had to invest in it. The other thing we're going to have to do is refurbish our dam at Lake Sequoia. That was built 80 years ago. It has never really been refurbished. There's some current concerns that we need to address in the improvement of that dam, which means that when we do the water intake and the dam refurbishment, we'll have to drain Lake Sequoia and do these critical improvements. Last thing we want to do is to have a failure of that dam. Then the other thing that we're facing is with our water plant, it's on the list, the chlorine gas treatment replacement. Right now we use chlorine gas cylinders. The Homeland Security, the state, the feds, everybody's concerned about those cylinders, bringing them up the mountain and storing them. And in fact, we've had a small leak before. So we're facing a $650,000 outlay to convert to a on-site process where we generate bleach instead of chlorine gas to treat our water. Other thing we have is in the split rail area, a water line replacement for $650,000. We are going to have to do wastewater treatment plant holding tank refurbishments. That's another $124,000. And then the other one I wanted to point out was on Highway 28, North Carolina Highway 28. We have a water line upgrade replacement. That's going to be almost $700,000, $690,000. And here's the point I want to make. All of this totals up to, $4.6 million. But here's something that we would like fair consideration about. And that is on that Highway 28 water line. Part of that line branches off and it serves some neighborhoods that are outside Highlands. Some of the neighborhoods extend well into the county. Years ago, in the 70s and 80s, when they were putting in the water lines, they used galvanized pipe, small galvanized pipe. And these folks said, well, can we hook up to the Highlands water system? We said yes. Right now, some of these lines are beginning to corrode and shut down, and it's an impending problem. Some of the neighborhoods could be in really desperate situation. What we would like to have happen is to form a partnership with the county to where there were water lines outside the town that the county would be willing to help by installing those or replacing them, and then we will do our part to get the water up to those points. And on Highway 28, while you could also serve neighborhoods, we could extend fire hydrants to places out in the county and so forth. So the point I'm trying to make is that we could form a partnership working with the county and supply not only the needs of the people living in Highlands, but some people that are just outside who are county residents who need water and support too. Now I bring this up, and I know my good friend is here from Franklin, but I know this has been done for Franklin before, and we're just trying to make the point. We'd like some consideration on this too, because we're constantly having to, invest in our infrastructure, and any help that the county could provide would really be valuable. And it also would be a win-win for everyone, because we are, again, one of the main drivers of tourism in Macon County, and if we are able to supply those needs and keep that industry going, it translates into more tax revenue for the entire county. So that is our one of our main concerns, is that if we could get some county support in these economic development areas, it would be greatly appreciated, and it's needed. We're also investing in trying to promote the use of technology. We have a cell tower in Highlands. We have two. We're in discussions with one of the providers about improving the cell tower that on one of our mountains. And when that is done, it will provide more coverage, not just for the people in Highlands. You can't block the signal. It just goes everywhere. So all the county residents will enjoy an improved benefit too. So here again, I just want to say, we look forward to being partners and working cooperatively with folks in the county. We are Macon Countyans, and any kind of consideration that...
Thank you, Pat.
Okay.
Any questions?
Who original? We're not in control of the timing, but they're Verizon, to be quite frank. They're looking at that and doing the engineering, so and it should really give for that plateau area complete coverage.
Mr. Taylor, who originally paid for that water line to be installed at Queen Mountain?
A developer.
A developer?
Yeah. And that's the problem. Back then, developers would run lines, and I can't take the responsibility since I've only been the mayor for 5 months. But a lot of times we'd hook things up and supply them, but the county didn't do it. It was just the developer. But then you have the people there now who are looking for the water supply.
Okay. One more question is, Are there meters on that water line that's going to Queen Mountain? Do we have any idea in Highlands how much water actually is being?
We could get that for you because they are metered, yes, because they pay a bill. So I'm sure that that could be done. You know, if you had that line, not only could it be Queen Mountain, but, you know, other services could be potentially provided too.
Is the water and sewer department in Highlands profitable?
Good question. Here's our situation. They're at kind of a break-even operation, and their rates have been fairly steady. What is happening right now is with some of our citizens, we have been having to charge more for our electric utility. And to be quite frank, we have a strong reserve in the electric utility area.
Yeah.
And what we do is the water and sewer needs equipment or support, we'll move money over there to kind of stabilize their operation too. So it's kind of a utility
No.
thing. And some people, and we're looking at this, criticize that we're carrying too much of a reserve. My counter to that is when I was not in town at the time when we had the big storm this winter, and you know they were saying it might be an ice storm. If that storm had hit Highlands, it could have really done hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage. So we'd have to devote money toward getting things back up.
Don't start spending money. Y'all are doing okay. It's okay. Reserves are a good thing.
They are. They are.
And then one more question. The people at Queen Mountain, are they only paying for the water?
They pay a double rate.
They pay double rate.
Anybody that's outside the town, they pay a double rate for the water.
That would be similar to Franklin.
Yes. Yeah.
Pat, you had to prioritize based upon your list there. My understanding, I would think the water intake would probably be number one.
We've got that covered actually. The 28 line,
Be your number one priority.
yes. And, you know, then the work on the water plant with that chlorinization, moving away from the chlorine gas, that's going to be another important thing. Although we are having to pay for the, let's go back, we are having to pay $500,000 to refurbish the dam. And like I say, that dam hasn't really had any work on it since 1928, and we've discovered the little plug at the bottom. What is holding it, back when they built it, somebody put a piece of a road sign and some locust posts, but the rest of it's kind of
It ain't broke, don't fix it.
concrete. So, we're hoping it's
They went to do that.
Well, they're debating about Brownsville Falls. I was
It's gonna be so hard.
well, and we have a dam
Drill
like
into it, it's so
Brandon
hard.
that's not in Highland, and we're
Can
very
we engineer
concerned
to
that
make
that
it
would
easier?
fail, still flying down. It would really impact our.
Remember the 4 or 5 water?
That's one of the reasons why we're doing the third intake.
Pat, did you provide this?
Oh,
Oh, Jim did. Okay. Sorry, I skipped over the liaison comments because I was trying to get Pat back to Highlands. Any other questions?
comments?
I'm ready whenever y'all are done.
Okay. Good deal. Thank you for coming. I really
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
it.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Do we have another one of his handouts now?
All right. Sorry, Jim.
No
Liaison
problem, no
comments.
problem. I'm personally really excited about the topic I'm talking on right now. It's going to be very important for the county moving forward to consider infrastructure and where we go. I just want to reemphasize it. This is just my personal opinion, so take it for what it's worth, but I think it would be nice if this board could get a set of priorities to the county commissioners so that they can start planning for future development of where infrastructure might need to be, whether that's internet or phone or water, power, whatever it might be. I think if this board comes up and says that, I'm throwing this out there, I'm not by any means trying to throw one thing or the other, but they say that it's most important that we run a water line and sewer towards Otto, south of 441. That's the #1 priority for the county. I would think the commissioners are gonna listen to that very closely, and probably follow y'all's list on where we think. We're looking at y'all to do it. You're the only ones we've asked to do research on this project. Again, I know it's important, I was happy to do that. This thing that I brought was a meeting they had at Western earlier this week, and we've been talking about, part of this board has been talking about industry and infrastructure, and I just thought it was interesting how it was going. And it just, that was a complete coincidence that it tied in with what Pat was saying about the hospitality industry in Highlands. But I just thought it was interesting. I thought y'all might be interested in seeing what it said, how much of an economic impact that it makes for Macon County. My personal opinion is that it's probably one of our strongest industries for this county. That's all I got. Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
I know the water and sewer, you can have some impact on being that it's run by local government. However, the telecommunications, internet, things like that, is there any influence that can be provided by government bodies such as the Board of Commissioners?
That's a good question. I would think that we would have some influence, and obviously the town of Highlands is getting ready to start providing it, but selling it. Am I correct in saying that, John?
I think it got put on the, I think they
considering it,
can't, yeah, but I think they found out they can't sell it. They can't
sell it.
They can't become a provider of internet. They can offer it for a free service, but they were looking into that, but I think that they ended up finding out.
May have, yeah.
Is that because of the FCC?
I think it was that or North Carolina law. I remember reading something. about
I can't remember, but it was one or the other. But personally, to me, and I knew the answer about the water and sewer department, but to be that they're not profitable, and that is all Highlands does, is Highlands lives off their electric to pay for everything in that town. That's why that town is able to do what they can do, which is nice, but I think they ought to make money off their water and sewer too, because one day, whoever owns all the water and sewer down here, make money, dude, so you can provide the things for the community. And
Well, you always have maintenance needs.
right, and like I say, that reserve's not bad. Then you can pay for that $650,000 water line.
Justin, how does Frank find that? Are they profitable?
Yeah, they're profitable. I actually had that talk with one the other day, and he said it's self-sustaining. The public works department is funded for the water and sewer. It's all, in a sense, the same as like the landfill.
And y'all don't have electricity.
No, we use the water and sewer. So, yeah, they live off their money from the previous year for the next year for money they took in for the water and sewer for public works and all the lines, the salaries, everything.
Pat brought up the electric, you had the right storm, you don't burn through a lot of reserves. You probably won't have that on water and sewer, it'll be more of a gradual decline. I mean, if you have a flood, march out one crossing or something, but you run the risk if you had a 2-inch ice storm on all the Highlands area, you're out of business. So,
Electric business anyways, is a lot of residents feel like that, whether it's in question, whether or not Highland should be in electric business or not. But there's some people that don't think, because it is and I'm not sure, Jimmy, you may know the rate of, when they buy the power from Duke Energy, then they increase the rates, and that's how they operate the power company in Highlands. And it is a big benefit because these guys are out there real quick after a storm and stuff. So where we may wait for 6 hours on Duke Energy to come and fix the. So that is bouncing back and forth with whether or not we should.
Either one of y'all know how that rate is in comparison to Duke, what they charge per kilowatt hour?
I know what Highlands, what I pay is about equal to what Jeff Weller pays, but I don't know if he's on Duke or Haywood.
He's on Haywood.
And Haywood is more, I know. But I think our power, everybody in Highlands complaining that they went up, but we actually pay a very low power rate. We're not, the town's not profiting off of us. The town's benefiting from being a big, buying it in bulk.
When you go to Haywood, they would be the one.
Yeah.
It's high.
So I don't,
CNC.
I don't think they're doing, I think they give a good service, but I don't think they're doing the customer injustice on the price. That's not why, they're not jacking it up to make their money.
How are the water and sewer rates?
I don't know how they are in comparison, it'd be kind of interesting.
Really good.
I'll try and bring a bill and compare it to Franklin, I don't know. What you said?
Well, see, and also, what is the garbage? You know, is it self-sustaining, or are they going in the hole on the garbage, or do you have any idea on that?
I've heard about breaking even.
Yeah, I think everything's about break even except power, and it pays for everything.
That seems a little scary to me that you're just relying on one service there to cover everything else.
Agreed.
That's kind of your point, what you're on.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you don't have to raise it, you know, a dime a gallon, but if you go up, you know, a penny down, it affects it by $2 or $3, you know, $2 or $3 over 1,000 customers over 12 months a year, you know, all that adds up.
Okay. Justin, you ready?
Yeah.
Talk about Franklin?
Yeah, some of the stuff you had for the last time you wanted me to come back and clarify on was I didn't have line size for the water and sewer around town, and I've got kind of some main areas not broke out, you know, by street, but I mean some of the main thoroughfares. But the Georgia Road has the water has a 10-inch PVC running down the Georgia Road, and that's pretty much all the way down to Welcome Center with a 6-inch sewer. The Old Murphy Road, which is the big line coming into town, is a 16-inch water line on an 8-inch PVC sewer. Highlands Road has an 8-inch PVC water and a 10-inch water on also on East Main with an 8-inch PVC out the Highlands Road for sewer. Depot Street's a 10-inch water line. Palmer Street's a 12-inch water line. Pearson Avenue's an 8-inch water line with a 6-inch clay sewer line. So that's one of the old ones, which.
That's on Harrison.
On Harrison, which that's actually one of the sections in the infiltration study for an upgrade they have. It's one of the ones here on the list. And that's on what you do with. Sile Road is a 10-inch line with an 8-inch sewer. Water Street's a 10-inch line. Westgate Plaza is a 10 and 8-inch line with an 8-inch sewer. Holly Springs Plaza is a 6-inch line with an 8-inch sewer. Jones Ridge, we got water out there, no sewer. It's a 16-inch line. Patton Road is a 16-inch line, and the industrial park's 16-inch line. That's all still links into
That makes the loop.
makes the loop back around. So,
Now, are all those the city's line?
yeah, it's all city. Now
Yeah,
you talked about
county.
the.
I mean, a lot of that's county, right?
County bills them, city maintains them.
Where do I get in line for this? Now I understand why Pat's wanting money. That makes a lot more sense.
I looked over the infiltration study, and obviously a lot of the infiltration study is, some of the problem areas is busted, culvert pipes, and people have let their lines be open, no screening on their homes, places like that. They did all the smoke testing, checked the finest place. There's some in here showing lines where they've come out of tree stumps, smoke from one, so obviously they've got, had some things to fix. But there was 8 major projects that they recommended to fix, and as of when this was completed, they had completed 3 of them. And they've completed one was the Green Street sewer line improvement, one was the West Franklin sewer line interceptor manhole rehabilitation, and the West Main Street sewer rehabilitation. And they've got also they had the Harrison Avenue, which is where the clay was, that was one of them. And then they've had Doral Street, Spring Street, and Olco Drive with some of the other, and Iowa Street and Love Street were some of the major ones they recommended to fix for the infiltration.
So all those are within town limits? Is that right?
Then this is probably the leftovers of some of the old clay stuff, I'm sure.
This, I think I asked you this before, and now I don't remember the answer. Does infiltration also indicate leak?
Yes.
So if there's infiltration, there's also loss of water?
Yeah, in a sense, when a manhole's cover on there, you shouldn't get any water in the manhole, it should seal. And when they do the smoke test, if smoke comes up around the manhole, then you know you're gonna get water in there. So that increases your flow on your sewer system so that's why when they see the heavy rain, they're seeing their numbers hitting almost the maximum. That's also why they expanded out another, I think it was a 2 million gallon tank of sewer system for increased capacity. Yeah.
And is there any way to trace water line maintenance as well as sewer, or how is that?
I think though when they do the water lines by dive, I think a dive is the way they can do it.
And has that been?
They've done some stuff, I don't have any records on the water. Another question Jens had was the capacity of the sewer. And I talked to Jay Gibson, and I asked him what the capacity of the sewer line was around town, and he said that from all the area, there's nothing at capacity anywhere. He was not even probably near 50%, so there's plenty of room for where the sewer is, where you can add on and not have any major issues.
So the lines are 50%, how about the treatment? Is that the total, you're talking about the total factor?
Yeah, the full line.
Not just lines or treatment?
Yeah, just the line. They're not, they can handle the line share. They're not at max.
What about treatment?
The treatment tank was about 70%, and then they added that 2 million, so now we're probably close to 50%.
Probably less.
Yeah. That's when the infiltration they were seeing, so they were really close to the max when you had heavy rain. So they went through and had a lot of these manholes and these places to fix, which they've been doing,
So that 6-inch Georgia road line is only like 50%.
if that.
And that's going all the way to the Welcome Center.
It's a 10-inch water line out there.
But a 6-inch silver.
A 10-inch water line on Highlands Road. It runs all the way to,
And you probably
Farm Bill.
You probably see the 6-inch line probably because so many people already had septic, probably didn't want to tap onto the sewer. So that's probably why they didn't have the need for a large septic.
Well, is all that gravity or is it?
That's a pump station.
Yeah.
I mean, a 6-inch pump line
That's
is
a lot.
huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, you could put some, a 10-inch water line out there.
questions for Justin?
How do you annex people into the city for sewer line?
Right now they have them.
Sewer satellite annexation?
Yeah, it has to do with voluntary annexation. We got a voluntary annexation policy.
Is the town pretty receptive to that right now?
Yeah, if it's in ETJ, yeah. If it's outside, then they're not as much receptive to it because it's not in their, since there's sections of roads. If somebody come in that was on Addington Bridge and will be annexed, it probably have a little difficult doing
That's
it.
cool.
Well, you got water down there anyway,
Right.
but I'm saying places like that, if they want to be actually annexed, they will pay town taxes. Because there's been some places that are outside ETJ tried to get annexed in and they've denied them.
Well, for like a Tractor Supply, they actually to be tied in the city, do they pay city taxes?
Trash plant. They don't pay.
But they do have city water and
And
sewer,
sewer.
but they have to pay roughly.
Double.
They'll pay the escalated rate for the water sewer since they're not in the city limits.
All right, so what other tools do we need to start putting our list together of priorities for water and sewer? Yes.
I might recommend that the planning board look at where growth actually has occurred. What length of time you want to use it for. This goes back to 2008. I think for about 10 years. This economic study goes back to 2008, but I'm just saying for your purposes, planning for water and sewer, you should go back 10 years. We're headed back toward increased growth with construction, not at the rate we had in '06, but we wasn't ready for that one either.
Where would we get that information?
Well, I'd say the tax office had most of that new homes since X
Was they
date.
being built?
Yep, all that's online, it just takes some data crunching. But I think that would be pretty important too.
It'd be nice if we could get a map, I'm gonna hypothetical map. Let's see. We don't have Justin at the county anymore, so we'll see if the new folks can do it. But if we had a map,
Yeah, I can do it.
that could just kind of, even if it was color coded, you know, like a building's been added to the lot, 5 years ago, or maybe that's red. Just if there was a way to prioritize, like to show on, because you'd have a land value, then you would add a building value at some point to the tax record. Right, and then could you show the difference on a map? Like, will that show up?
I think it's probably gonna be known when all the buildings are constructed.
The problem, the only problem with the county's GIS is they don't archive it. It's all current. So the only way to keep up is you have to just have an older copy of the GIS parcel data. Now, the tax department, they might, but it would probably be a little harder for, I don't know about that.
You could go by the year built in the tax office records. I don't know if you can search their records just by date, but that's one source.
That'd be the only way of, I think, graphically seeing where there's any growth.
Because we could speculate all we need, argue for days about where the growth is, but that would prove where it is. That's just mine. Y'all can do what you want.
Well, no, I think I was just questioning how we got to that, or how we could get that information, but no, I think that'd be valuable.
You can get a lot of this information on Zillow. It'll show you the houses and the prices and whatever, and then kind of knowing where the new developments have been, you can look at a lot of that and find it on some of those online programs.
That would be good information, obviously, knowing if we could get that, and where the growth had occurred, and then knowing what our options are on water and sewer, but that's not the only thing we need to be looking at. I mean, that would be a stepping stone, would be a tool, but we'd also need to look at the roads, and say, even if maybe people are moving north of here, but if there aren't roads to carry that, and even if there is sewer, that may not be where we would suggest steering the growth. Maybe it needs to be steered where there are utilities already in place. So water and sewer may not be the only thing that we need to look at as far as Macon goes.
So you're thinking another tool we need is to look at comprehensive traffic plan, Susan, right? Is that what it's called? And trying to get that summarized for what? We show that
And where do
graphically
they see,
somewhere.
where do they see growth going, and where are they going to be spending the dollars?
Sorry, it's just so much easier to see a picture. I know it's harder for
Bring some
you.
crayons.
Go for it.
Would you be looking more or less
The
at
64
new
pack.
subdivisions and house growth for the commercial?
I think we look at
I think both.
Yeah,
Both.
Because some of the, most new subdivisions is in Clark's Chapel. There've been a lot of houses and.
It's a beautiful area, and if people keep building down there, I mean, that road, how well that
It's not
road's
getting any
gonna.
wider, is it?
We actually had
That's what I'm thinking, you know, how are you gonna, we gonna stack it?
We actually had a private investor looking at that sewer line out that way this week on the details on it. It's probably, I might say it's probably one of the strongest ones.
So how the road's gonna hold in as far as getting people in and out of there, that's something we need to get.
Do we want to extend water and sewer in residential areas, or do we want to try to limit it to commercial corridors?
Get away with it.
Well, who wants to, does the county want to get in the water and sewer business, or, you know, I mean, I think that's the stuff we need to figure out.
Well, a lot of that decision comes from the Marcy town, too. Pretty much their law.
Yeah, how much more do they want to take on?
Yeah.
But somebody's putting in the line and all you're doing is collecting the money, I'd say keep at it.
I like that word.
That's a win for the town.
I'll go into the business down here if y'all put the lines in.
Understand profitability there. I lost my train of thought there.
Well, it's a tough task.
There's also a capacity issue of what pursuing the water plant in the Seven Highlands that they can handle. I think Highlands is looking for repairs, and that may be also for ordinance as well, too.
I mean, I know the town's looked at, I think they're pretty set on their sewer now with the upgrades they've done to it in the past couple of years. The water, I know they've discussed expanding it, you know, adding in some more intakes, expanding it. But it's just talks. They haven't, any further than that really right now.
Then, if I'm not mistaken, last meeting, there were some areas that kind of, maybe out 441 north, where the lines going out 4-lane quit, but yet they come in on up Lake Emery Road.
Yeah, there's a section there from, like, Macon Bank out to, or, you know, the road up to Macon Bank Corporate to Lake Emery, there's no water or sewer.
It goes through Lake Emery though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it goes out Lake Emery,
Picks up Dukesville and Drake software.
and then it stops there, and then it's private from there out to the gym
To
shop.
the gym shop.
They pay for it in their line.
So the only large parcel through there is the Clap property. Is it the biggest parcel along that stretch?
Drake owns some land just north of the Duke property.
Pretty nice.
Okay, so we've got the growth map.
Growth comparison over the
DOT.
last years in the transportation plan. I had talked to Tommy Jenkins too about coming tonight. He could make tonight, he said he could make the next one.
Right. I think it's a pretty important aspect.
I was at some sort of meeting, can't remember where that was recently, where the DOT had some numbers, you know, and they're saying that there's not an increase in traffic on a lot of the roads. If you look at it on a weekly basis, you may have more one day, but then be down for 6 days kind of thing. They mentioned like some roads in adjoining counties were like that, and they didn't seem to, nobody seemed to know exactly why that was, you know, but it's not growing like it was in 2006 and 7. There's not the kind of traffic increase. That'd be interesting if we could get a hold of that too, I think. I don't know who you contacted for DOT, perhaps.
No, daily
Going to and from that, and that's just another issue out there.
Ryan Sherman used to be the original transportation planner.
Drivers.
So whoever took over Ryan's position might have some of that information.
Pleasure.
We know what's going to be out the middle, so go. It's dead. There's like 4 cars ago, the rest of it.
I have a question. Do we need to be looking to see where there's more water that we can tap into at this point, or we still have plenty of water in Carter J, or do we need to?
From what I've heard Cartuga J can handle for a lot, it can handle some more being took out of it. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know we'd be more than have that conversation when they about how much more it can handle, and they said it's nowhere near the max for what the government limitations are for.
I've heard that years ago, we talked about, alternate water supply source, but I'm looking at the numbers and talking to people, I think it's gonna be okay.
I was just thinking how we can get property on Testady Creek and some of the Coweta Creek and stuff. While there's some large tracts left, it might be something we'd want to look at.
Has the lack of water and sewer, maybe more capable of answering this, has it deterred development in some areas around here?
It has, in some of the higher out and remote places, which wouldn't be practical anyway, but it does slow it down a lot.
You said last week, I think, or last month, that it vastly increased the value of the properties that have water and sewer on it.
Yes.
But you don't know particulars on how much tax dollars we've lost because we didn't have water and sewer going to particular areas.
I just know there's not that many large tracts, seems like, left in the area, development tracts, and very few 20 acres. You start looking for 20 acres, and they're very hard to find.
For commercial development.
Just development for subdividing to houses and.
Right. That's what it's changed.
Would y'all agree it's a correct statement that water is probably a more valuable source than sewer? Because with water, nowadays with the technology, they can get you a septic system, a drain field, and about anything. But if you can't find water on that, if you don't have a public water supply, source, if you can't drill a well and find water, it doesn't matter how big of a drain field you can put in. I mean,
I think where the sewer becomes important is for commercial development.
right.
When you have a small parcel and you don't have room for a septic.
Or in a development where you want to do zero lot lines and try to keep it reserved, and you don't have room to put in lots of drainage. You don't have 3 acres.
Yeah.
You're doing
But I mean,
water acre parcels.
Again, you could do a private
Sure, exactly.
sewer system and all. I would think that it would get down to it, the water becomes a much more valuable source.
You can figure out a way to get rid of water. Getting water.
You can figure wastewater out.
Yeah, right.
You can't figure finding it.
Right.
If you can't drill for it and you don't find it, you don't have a lot more options.
You're definitely right, because we've put in water systems to all the properties that we've developed, and those lots will outsell 10 to 1 things without water, and bring you considerably more money when you do sell them. But most people are looking for something with water on it because they don't want to chance the well and going through their, the chance of getting water on a piece of property.
I think I mentioned this before, but a lot of areas have established urban growth boundaries or service boundaries, prioritizing where they're going to put public money to develop more intensive use. I personally would hate to see us trying to run water lines to all the remote portions of the county, both from an economic standpoint and from an environmental standpoint. There are some limits to where intensive growth should take place. And certainly if the county is looking at expanding services, I would like to see it done in a sort of consistent and perhaps more compact way that was more economical for the county and that would focus growth in those areas, rather than trying to respond to a particular, development idea.
In other words, you're saying trunk lines along the major roads would be the first thing that we need to look at.
If some particular, it would be nice if it grew, more, not just tentacles here and there, but if there was actually in building so that there was more compact, filled-in growth where we have, access to county services. But I guess there will always be corridors and that we have to look at that, but also look at developing the areas along, out, say maybe further back from the corridors where they could still have access to it.
Of course, likewise, from a utility perspective, the only way, a surefire way to lose money is to build everywhere anybody wants to.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta generate a certain amount of revenue, so, if you can kind of manage where you want that to go,
Yeah.
the county and the town need to be working collaboratively, but there's not enough options here for both of them to make money in the utility business.
No.
So, how do you, I don't know what, we're talking about, it's like planning always is a lot harder than operations, because operations, you're gonna try to make something happen today. Planning, you gotta be thinking about how you want to look.
You'd almost want to survey the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at some point we will, we will get into that, because if we start talking about, for example, Iowa Valley is going to react when you talk about major public sewer and water going out to the airport area. There's going to be a lot of people who think that's horrible. There's going to be some people who think that's good, but this is going to impact major, how development occurs. And in some areas that are pretty rural, there will be very mixed opinions about the benefits of that.
You would want to spend, about a long line, millions of dollars on a line, and then nobody won't tap into it. Then end up, you got 10 years out all that money, or you're like the one on Georgia Road, the bank is in.
So if we look at these growth maps and we can sort of begin to see some kind of pattern, it would be nice if we could, kind of fill in the edges of that pattern and think that this is where the services would be available. And they won't be just running all over the county.
Would it be beneficial to us to look at where we have existing lines that we don't have development tapped into it? Instead of expanding lines, focus more on, can we generate growth where we've got existing utilities? That's gonna save us as a taxpayer money. If we're the ones having to pay to put it in, if it's already there, then we can market, say, the side of the road area. A lot of folks I've talked to say that's where they think, a no-brainer where between the new Walmart and 441, that's where it's going to go. Is that what we need to, one of those areas where we've got the infrastructure there? Although it's a two-lane road now, if that gets developed, two-lane road through there will be a nightmare. And are there any?
Well, that's where you can start looking at transportation patterns too. It would be great if we could actually develop some street grids in areas like that that are getting intensive development instead of just, the road through and everybody building a strip. If we could actually develop some street grid patterns around that area to distribute the traffic more, it would be a better way to make use of it.
I think we're kind of, I feel like, I don't want to step on the EDC's feet, but I think we need to work collaboratively with the EDC. Does the county have a transportation board? We were talking about street I mean, it sounds like this needs to be a collaborative effort. It's not a one board effort.
Maybe we get Holland to do the next meeting. The county does have a comprehensive plan they had to do, 2, 3 years.
Have they?
On the technical cooperating committee, not the transportation. The comprehensive transportation plan, there was a board formed for that, and then it dissolved after the plan.
Right.
Does the state consult the local government or local municipalities as to how they would like to see road improvements in the area?
To a degree now. In the past, not so much. The new transportation, Secretary of Transportation, Matt and I were talking about it the other day. What was the percent of local input? 20%?
It's 20%.
The local has that much impact. They rate projects, and that's 20% of the rating factor is the local input. So they have they are considered the locals now.
That was kind of when they set up that, did that comprehensive transportation plan, it was a policy change where they were trying to let local people have more input into it, and therefore they have this planning process where the local board prioritized.
And do they prioritize their improvements based on the local growth pattern? Or do they just say, this is the worst road, we're gonna fix this one?
They use all those factors. They use crash reports, they use traffic counts, they use projected growth, they use just about every number, every factor you could imagine to determine that. And some things have very small weight, and some factors have a lot of weight. You know, in an intersection, the crash count is the biggest thing, and the traffic count, not so much the local input. So it depends on task, and also depends on if it's just the local needs or if it's a regional needs. So it's a complicated process, but every time we sit down, it just gives me a headache. But it is a lot better than it used to be. The DOT used to just work on their own, and they would decide where the project could be.
So the county would have to
They
be
change it.
reactive to the state's.
I think we
Projected
are,
plan.
the commissioners are on the, what is that board? Transportation.
Regional Planning Organization?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
RPO, there you go. But they have more input than the TCC. TCCs are just the jurisdictions.
It was the RPO that I was suggesting to get somebody from to be able to give us that traffic information.
If they would just kind of tell us, here's what you have, here's what we project in the future, and that's kind of it.
And they would talk about projects too, I would think. I mean, when projects go on the transportation, the TIP, you know, that up until at that point, there's a lot of input, and once they get on there, it's harder to influence some of that.
Once it's been funded, it's a done deal.
Do they not depend on a lot of your state representatives' information on that too?
I think
Not so much.
RPO, or the comprehensive plan, was an effort to get some of that out, removed a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's good, bad, or, it's different.
But part of that transportation plan was to get the local input, the pulse of the community, because if it's not important enough for the localities to use it in their planning, then the DOT probably they wouldn't consider it at all. They put their money where people are doing some planning. That was the purpose of that, to see what we had in mind, and then they would kind of lockstep with that as they could. So if we plan, they're willing to help us. If we don't plan,
So if we were, just hypothetically, if the county showed progressive planning along some area or some corridor, then the state would then support something like that, or?
they would be more likely to.
Yeah, if it's any of those plans that have developed, then they're more likely to see they see the need for it, so then they're more likely to fund it. I mean, it can be anything from bike paths to sidewalks, number of different things.
Well, the other thing I do is they sit down and discuss it with Justin focused on that area.
Justin was your first meeting last month. It was
I'm a
just
little lost.
back then. Yeah, it was crazy.
Maybe we can get the DOT down, or the RPO.
I think probably Philip Moore might be one to get over here, because he could explain how it works better job than I've ever done here.
You know, I think if we can kind of do these like one I know we're looking at all the infrastructure, but I think if we can kind of do these one thing at a time, and kind of just focus on this water and sewer thing and then move on, we'll work a lot more efficiently than. Yeah. So if we can kind of, if we think those are all the tools that we have left, it'd be nice to do that next month and try to put some recommendations together, at least as far as water and sewer is concerned, get that off the plate.
The water and sewer gets complicated, because you've got town, you have county, you got town islands, you know, it's like what comes first, I think, the chicken or the egg, and move forward there.
Well, do we need to meet with the town planning boards, or
Yeah,
at
I
what
don't
point
know.
do we stop, what point do we try to move forward?
Yeah.
We're not
I
spinning our
think seeing those
wheels.
growth maps would be, I think will really move us forward and hearing from you and see that after those two, I think we'll have we'll know how much we know and what else we need to fill in.
Yeah, I think the EDC is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. So if you could make every effort to make that happen. Commissioner Tate?
They need something, right now, all I've heard and seen, this dam refurbishment in Highlands probably would be a top priority, because if you live through that little dam at Jackson Hole breaking and coming down through Franklin, it did a lot of damage all the way down. And I've got pictures still of that.
Yeah, they did.
The water was coming from up over the gorge in the Highland Road down through there, and it was a small dam. I think that should be looked at immediately if that dam's that bad.
Yeah, does the Corps have any control over that?
They did some studies on that dam. I remember a couple years ago, I mean, they had divers go down and all. I don't think it's anything that there's concern about. I was kind of curious of how he worded that. I mean, he kind of worded it like it was urgent. I don't think it is, because obviously, I guess the town owns that dam, they're liable for it. But I remember they did some testing on it not that long ago. I don't.
The
I
downstream
would
side was
assume
pretty
that Pat
safe.
kind of alluded to it, that they're gonna have to drain the lake anyway to put in that other intake. And I guess they figured, you're gonna lower it.
Let's do two things
I
at
don't think
once.
it's that urgent, it's like, you're driving all this water out, and you're gonna take years to get it back, or months to get it back. You might as well work on the dam.
that dam?
That's probably
Lake
what-
Sequoia. I guess Lake Sequoia Dam. You know, it's the big
I
one
think
right
our
there on the
task
right,
as far as
going
like
into
the
Highlands.
town
Is it Mirror
owns
Lake?
is more
Lake
about-
Sequoia, Lake Sequoia, the one, that's Lake Sequoia, you pull up, right?
It's the first one you saw.
On the right.
Oh. They didn't help.
Yeah, man, we'll never see Mirror Lake off 64.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
still quite understand where their
Guess you can tell how
responsibility
often I go
is
to
and where the
Highlands.
county is and that wish
You know, it's kind
list,
of a
I don't know
curve
how
thing.
that would normally play out.
I think it is, the way it plays out in that is those folks that's outside of the Highland city limit that's on that water line, if the water line was to go bad there, they would be without
And
water.
historically, the county's had that with the town, anything outside there's
But the county hasn't funded anything, say, any of the things on his list, would the county normally be involved in that?
with the town of Highland. We never have, but it's probably something we need to look at.
And was there any agreement with the developer to put that in on maintenance of that line outside of the Highland City limit? Or is it just full bore ahead, so now then it's gonna land on
Yeah,
the
but-
citizens of Macon County to,
Or it depends on if the town of Highland actually took the maintenance over on that line. It could be they could be supplying the water, but they haven't ever done the maintenance on it. It could be the developer's responsibility.
Yeah, and that, now I know that if you do something with the town, you have to have it all engineered, then Lamar has to sign off on it. And then after it's installed, they inspect it, approve it, and then they do take over it. But, because when we ended up, I did a development with some guys, and we put that line in. I mean, they made us extend it. We had to take 10-inch almost to the city, right to the city.
The county just did a similar project in River Bend, put some already back through River Bend.
that Swiss colony.
Yeah, in certain situations, the county can get loans or grants or
A lot easier.
a lot easier than the towns can. At least that's what I.
That's what it
was
used to
told.
be.
Yeah, at least in Franklin. Assuming, I thought that may have played out, the county used to give some money to Highlands just as a general, to help with off deferring water and sewer expenses. Is that, is still doing that?
Since I've been a commissioner, we have not put in any new infrastructure. Now, we have finished several items, including the Swiss Colony, Joe mentioned,
I was thinking about Highlands.
The last thing that I'm aware of is the county funded for that in Highlands was they had assisted with the water and sewer on board the hospital. But as far as I know, there's nothing that goes there now other than recreation funds on a yearly stipend.
Well, what, the county did step in, or when they do replace that line, they're gonna have, somebody's gonna have to do it eventually. They talked about maybe being able to tap in, because it would be larger, being able to tap in and increase some other development out there. I mean, that's where the county could look at that, you know, just like Pat said. Not only are you keeping these people paying taxes, because they're able to use their house, but you're also going to increase the development and possibly some development out toward the house. There's always.
Well, just south of there, there's, I know one house that's right on the side of the road that could not get water. And then as you go on down Highlands View, they have their big water tank. They've always had water problems there too, so.
Charge double.
Well, that's one question that I have. How far does the EPJ go down 441?
It goes just before Terrell Road, right there where
The old Mexican.
The old Mexican
hotel, right
restaurant.
before it.
Okay, so the water line goes on down to the Welcome Center. Okay, you'd mentioned that Tractor Supply tapped into the town's water source, and they pay a double rate or whatever. Do they fall under any other regulations for the town of Franklin?
No, that's just escalated water.
Okay.
They got sewer too.
Water into it.
What about like police coverage and stuff like that?
No, only way they get any police coverage if they've actually annexed.
So what are the chances of annexing, as that is?
Yeah.
But into ETJ, but if you annex them into ETJ, you don't get tax dollars.
No.
No, ETJ is just, you've got a little bit more
Control.
over
Right.
some, you know, zoning wise.
Right.
Is the main thing. And if adding annexing, the state added some new requirements for annexations for like the town to actually go and annex, and it's really restricted it a lot. I mean, there's a lot of criteria you've got to meet in community meetings, and for, if I wanted to potentially say I want to annex the Georgia road, that's not annexed.
Right.
Without them voluntarily wanting it, it's really drawn out. I looked at it a little bit, and it'd be like pulling teeth to go and annex private properties. Now, if you want to do it voluntarily, they wanted to have it annexed, then, you know, that's perfectly fine. You can do that route a lot easier.
But that doesn't have to be contiguous to
I think it does now.
other annexed
Used to
property.
not be.
I mean, you can't skip from, you couldn't have this and annex that property over there if there's a property in between that's not.
Yeah, no, not without them requesting it.
But even, so there can be a gap.
Yeah, there'd be a gap, like, I don't, the most recent one I know of was the little Thai Paradise
Right
place
across
across from Tractor Supply. They wanted to be annexed, and they got annexed, town annexed them in, because they came and requested voluntarily.
So the town does not have to have contiguous properties, the town can have their own.
Not if it's voluntary, they can deny it. but
And
they-
the reason that was.
But it has to be, yeah, listen.
But if you're a motel or something like that, water and sewer, security, police protection, I mean, they look at it as investment to be annexed and pay the tax.
The, now, but it has to be contiguous for me, town planner, to bring up to the town board, I want to annex this strip of property. Then it does. So that's the difference, that's some of the limitations they put on.
Forced annexation has to be contiguous.
Forced annexation is very strict. Yeah, that's why towns got, when they did the last one, they did a lot of the bypass and stuff. That's why there's a lot of little holes, because it was almost impossible to get an annex.
You wait for a police car.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a-
No,
It is.
somebody at your house.
I gotta,
That's why I'm mixing up.
Over Blue Valley?
Bill want my name changed back.
No, no.
Write that down.
No, don't write
Bill
that down.
said.
Bill, it's a
One other thing. this
For
is
$50, he'll delete it.
This upgrade for 28.
There's my fundraiser.
Last year I was down in kind of the Blue Valley area, and there's a big developer looking at a large tract of property, the old Mac Wilson place down there, and he runs into Georgia, and they've been looking at that, trying to get it for over a year, and it looks like it's going to come to pass.
Where is that?
When you go down, where you turn up Blue Valley, right there at the line, you turn out to the left there, out where Mac Wilson's and all the Wilsons lived, the Tom Wilson farm and all that area in there. They were flying over it and looking at it when I was up there visiting relatives last year. And it looks like that they are about ready to let it go, and that will be a huge development. Part of it's in Georgia, part of it's in North Carolina.
That's right on that Queen Mountain water line.
So I don't, so that's something you probably not aware of, but they were flying over the mountain when I was up there visiting last
It's the
year.
Queen Mountain, it's split rail.
That's the
that's-
Is that the split rail line? Or is that the?
That's the
the
Queen Mountain
water
water
line.
line.
So it's not anything you can mention. It's,
A little bit further down.
So all right, Clay's been a good move.
They already own a lot.
Do you have any idea how many houses there are in Queen Mountain?
A lot. That was Wilson Lane too.
It's amusing that he put the N on the damn refurbish. Don't notice that.
I saw that.
That's probably because of that damn safety act.
All right, next meeting,
So we're gonna stay on the third.
Thursday.
You sure you don't want to change?
According to Chester.
It sounds like we better not, that was a fiasco.
What'd you say your own name's, Kaylee?
You gonna mess with me?
Probably not.
It'll be May 15th.
I mean, there's no.
May 15th.
When fall comes, probably not. Do some, but it's.
Some of money she'll be able to participate.
I don't see why they have to be such an active conversation.
Yeah.
What's the date?
15th.
May, sometime.
Oh, it's one of those.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Some of them.
Notice.